In this WrestleTalk news, has WWE given up on Elias? How WWE plans to have Vince McMahon wrestle at WrestleMania, and The Undertaker was almost a solo inductee into the Hall of Fame, plus loads more. So subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos and to make Terry a very happy cat. Look at him, he's a total misery. Or is it just because you just woke up? You just wake up? Yeah, it's bright in here, isn't it?
Support WrestleTalk!
And we kick things off with an update on another WWE star who is MIA, musically inclined. Apparently. Elias hasn't been seen on screen since the July 19th edition of Raw from last year, where he took on Jackson Ryker in a Symphony of Destruction match, boshing each other with instruments, to put it in layman's terms. After that, he dropped off the radar with vignettes for a rebranding beginning to air in August. However, that didn't go through. Initial reports said that the original plan was for Elias to end up as some sort of Randy Savage clone with colourful trunks and a beard. Classic Randy Savage hallmarks. But Vince McMahon and other WWE officials didn't take to it, so it was scrapped. Now, Ringside News are reporting that there are still no creative plans for the star in the company all of these months later. It was described as creative purgatory. It goes Inferno, Purgatorio, Cateringio, for those of you using the Dante Alighieri mapping system. One WWE source is said to have told Ringside News that they can't remember the last time his name came up. It has been so long. And with Elias stranded in purgatory as this sort of gimmickless blob currently, things are looking bleak for the star, who, lest we forget, is one of those rare characters that didn't gel too well on NXT, but managed to get over huge on the main roster kind of almost immediately. But what do you guys think? Should Elias be worried? Do you miss seeing him on WWE TV? Let me know in the comments down below, because I will be replying. So Saturday brought us the rumor that Vince McMahon would be returning to a WWE ring for an honest to goodness wrestling match for the first time in 12 years to take on SmackDown commentator Pat McAfee. It's Mac on Mac action. Maction. John Pollock of Post Wrestling reported that the pair were set to begin a program soon to build to a match at WrestleMania 38. Now, in an update on Twitter, the Wrestling Observer's nosy Parker Dave Meltzer said that as of last night, Vince McMahon versus Pat McAfee was listed as a match on the internal schedule for WrestleMania, which I don't need to remind you is straight up bananas. Like I already mentioned, Vince hasn't wrestled in 12 years, he's as old as the hills as well, and Pat McAfee, while having proven himself more than capable in his NXT feud with Adam Cole, is green in wrestling terms. Like, who is going to lead this dance in order to make it look good? Well, some are speculating that Austin Theory might be the one to step in to wrestle on behalf of his on-screen mentor, paying off on their storyline that has been ongoing for the past few months. Though Dave Meltzer has suggested a different worldview in which WWE make the match a complete smoke and mirrors event, which would mask the 76-year-old Vince McMahon in the ring and make sure that he doesn't take any bumps. How much smoke and how many mirrors are we talking here? Like, over 17, a mirror world of mirrors. So we're so busy looking at them shine that we don't notice McAfee beating up a pensioner. Now, the feud is expected to be ignited on Thursday when Vince McMahon appears on the Pat McAfee show, though what could be said to make Pat think, I'm gonna deck this senior citizen remains to be seen. We've also no doubt seen the news that one of the big inductees into this year's WWE Hall of Fame come WrestleMania weekend will be the Phenom, The Undertaker. And while Taker is obviously taking top billing for the ceremony, there was briefly thought to be a universe in which he was the only inductee this year. Such is his importance to the success of the company, I guess. WrestleVotes on Twitter said, although the idea was in fact considered, I'm told The Undertaker will not be a solo inductee at this year's Hall of Fame. Source expects additional names will be announced soon, potentially starting tomorrow. Now, a solo induction would have been a major deal, not just for the prestige of the entire thing, but because the wrestler and their stories of the business would essentially have to carry the full televised show of WWE's Hall of Fame ceremony. There's only so many knives in bags stories, I imagine, as well. Booker T on his Hall of Fame podcast said that it is unlikely that this sort of filibustering is something that the dead man would want to do. He'd roll his eyes at it. I mean, he rolls his eyes at everything, but you know. He said, can The Undertaker come up and entertain for 2 hours, get the TV out of it, and whatnot? I don't think The Undertaker would actually want to do something like that, come up and tell stories all night. The one thing about the Hall of Fame ceremony has always been when these guys finally get that moment. Damn it, they go up there and they don't want to leave. The Undertaker is going to want to come out, say what he has to say, and he's going to want to get the hell out of there. Speaking of people who wanted that moment, let's talk about Shane McMahon, who, as we heard earlier this year, was let go from WWE after causing a reported ruckus at the Royal Rumble, trying to put himself over, and ended up booting himself out of the company instead. Since then, Shane has been quietly doing the rounds, talking business and not brawling, but perhaps the talk of his father stepping back into the squared circle has reignited some of those self-aggrandizing fantasies. Because Shane was at Madison Square Garden for a New York Rangers game, and while walking the halls of WWE's spiritual home, he spotted some Hulk Hogan memorabilia and decided to come for the Hulkamania. He tweeted, "Walking in the hallway at the Garden with my 3 sons for the New York Rangers game, and past this made me think, Hulk Hogan, got one more in ya. We are going to need quadruple the number of smoke and mirrors. Stat." That is a terrible idea for a feud. Terrible. Speaking of terrible ideas, Kane's office job alter ego Glenn Jacobs has been sharing some on social media. Now, the Knox County mayor waded into the conversation around the ongoing invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces by attempting to equate it to the culture war. Tweeting, "If you on the left are shocked by Putin's aggression, wake up, sunshine. Historically, in the real world, might makes right. Weakness, which is really what the left is all about, is not a virtue. It's a fatal character flaw. And no, the US still should not get involved." Might makes right, he says, about a man currently attempting to hold NATO and the rest of Europe to ransom with this conflict, who has threatened that he's put his nuclear response on the highest level of alert and bombed civilians in a neighbouring country. But at least he's not a f***ing snowflake. Am I right? Though at this point, I'm actually just having a go at somebody who is already dead, because AEW World Champion Hangman Page wasn't going to let this most terrible of takes slide right on by him, replying with links to a UNICEF support page for the children of Ukraine, a crisis relief fund, and a YouTube link to 10 ruthless chair shots Kane took to the head. Kane just got served by an anxious millennial. Oh, he's gonna love that. If you're still here after all the culture war stuff, good on you. Let's talk about something else. We spoke a little bit about this last week because Bobby Lashley was essentially written off TV with a concussion during Elimination Chamber so that he could rehab a legitimate shoulder injury. It was thought that with the idea of surgery on the table, Lashley would miss out on Mania and also the upcoming Madison Square Garden show this coming Saturday that he was being advertised for. However, a new report from Ringside News and confirmed by Fightful and Dave Meltzer suggests that Bobbles is trying to get medically cleared not only for MSG, but for WrestleMania, which could mean that Lashley continues to work while injured, taking time off post-Mania to have his surgery, but considering how he was taken out of Elimination Chamber, it does seem like he could be fairly seriously injured. So, as our top story showed, it is completely possible to work in WWE for a long old while without ever really wrestling a match. So, Elias, despite being in purgatory, could be doing okay and employed for a good few years more. One such star who fell into a similar pattern was Shane Haste, the former Shane Thorne / Slapjack, who said recently on the Two Man Trip podcast that at times he felt his employment with WWE was comical. He said, "I was at SmackDown every single week and I think I got written into the show and off the show 4 or 5 times. It became comical of how long I could be employed without doing anything. How many times can we stop and start this? No idea. Run out of time on the show? SmackDown's a shorter show. I'd wrestle in the ring before the shows, train with people. Some of the most fun I had in WWE was working on SmackDown on the main roster run, where I may not have been doing anything but hanging out in the ring with people and wrestling." And to add to this specific madness of the way WWE runs its shows, Thorne had initially intended to leave the company when TM61 tag partner Nick Miller left to return to Australia, but he was persuaded not to go because WWE officials told him that they had something for him. A lovely seat in catering. Finally, an update about John Hennigan, Johnny Caballero, Johnny Penis, who was announced for the World on Lucha event last week, which is set to take place during WrestleMania weekend. The former John Morrison has now also been announced for GCW Bloodsport 8. Josh Barnett tweeted to confirm, saying, "A man whose exploits are known all over the world is tapping into his collegiate wrestling roots and showing a side of himself that's never been seen before in professional wrestling. John Hennigan is coming to Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8. Morrison joins other recent WWE releases, Biff Busick, Timothy Thatcher, Jonah, and Marina Shafir on the show. And the thing is that doing a Grizzly GCW show has worked wonders for other former WWE stars who found themselves on the indies. Just look at Matt Cardona, who just won his 6th championship this weekend at NYWC.
Keith Lee made his bloody fantastic AEW debut a couple of weeks ago and is set for the Face of the Revolution ladder match at Revolution, where he's going to have a standoff against Wardlow, and yes, bloody please, give me more of that bloody please. While the debut was pretty much universally universally praised and loved, there's been some concerns aired around it. Wade Keller of PW Torch spoke on the debut on a PW Torch audio show where he noted that he'd heard from friends of Keith Lee they were concerned for his health.